I want to talk to you about Israel. So we've been reporting about this, how there's this sense of fraying in the Israeli government. I mean, Benny Gantz said he would leave Israel's wartime government if a clear plan was not developed for the end of the war. Why is this government seemingly beginning to fray? Why is it happening now?
Well, I think there's two reasons. One is it's always been a very fragile coalition that Netanyahu put together with a lot of extremist elements and small parties that have a hard time getting along. So under tension, those things are going to come apart eventually for sure. But the second is that the military operation that Israel's been doing in Gaza is really disconnected from the political goals. And the people in Israel, as well as the people in Gaza, are interested in a political solution. It's the only way forward where there's peaceful coexistence among the different groups. So there needs to be a political solution. And so far, Netanyahu, as an individual leader, doesn't seem to have any idea at all what the political solution might be. So others are starting to really push around him to find a way forward.
Is it complicated by the fact that they are recovering the bodies of hostages?
Well, I think it's complicated by the fact that there is no clear political solution that the Israeli government seems interested in under Netanyahu. So there's kind of an absence of anything other than the military strategy on the Israeli side. So the Israeli military has been very effective at kind of reducing things to rubble in the territory, but without a whole lot of vision about what comes next. And as we've seen in so many of the wars of the last few decades, from Iraq to Afghanistan and to Syria and beyond, the destroying stuff is easy. But the real challenge is in figuring out how to build something politically that's sustainable and serves people's basic needs. That's what's missing.
I want to talk about building something. I want to focus on the Palestinians for a second, because there were a lot of hopes that that pier that was made by the United States military, I think it cost $320 million. The first aid already was making its way into Gaza, but there are some who are saying it's not doing nearly enough. And I was curious, do you think this is a situation of too little too late when you're dealing with 1 million Palestinians who are essentially in famine?
Yeah, isn't it amazing that the Americans had to build this pier in order to get basic supplies into the territory when the American ally in the Israeli government is the one that's creating the blockade to all the other routes? So I think what that's telling us is that the American government is getting tired of the Israeli position, the Israeli government's position, and the American government wants to show that something else is possible, from aid to a political solution. So all of this is just making it harder and harder, I think, for Netanyahu to maintain his position as leader there, where he seems to have no idea about how to get himself out of this situation other than more and more military.
Well, wouldn't you say Hamas complicates the issue of aid going to Palestinians as well?
Well, possibly, but at the moment, there's no civil infrastructure in Gaza. There's no logistical support. There's no capacity to do stuff on the ground because of what's happened in the last few months. So the Americans with the pier and then the aid agencies that we've heard so much about are trying to make things work in a circumstance where it's just so difficult to travel the roads and to fly in and to get through border crossings and stuff. So all of it just points to the way that the regular people who live there are being made to suffer for the kind of grand political machinations of these leaders who aren't even really representing the local people. Netanyahu is very unpopular in Israel, and Hamas was never the most popular group in Gaza. But the people who are suffering there have had to live under the kind of dueling fights between these two. And it's just astonishing how regular people are paying the cost for stuff that they're not largely responsible for.
It's a tragic and disturbing case, to say the least. Ian Hurd, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you. See you again.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of News Nation's fact-driven coverage.